Hey, this is Dave. You're about to listen to my interview with Hugo Bowne-Anderson, and we're going to discuss an article he wrote called Stop Building AI Agents, Here's What You Should Build Instead. So this whole thing is going to be about agents and agentic AI, what you need to know, how you need to get schooled up. For me, I find that the more I learn about AI, the deeper this chasm seems. I'm super intrigued by the possibility of it and the promise of it, but I'm never 100% sure that I'm studying the right stuff or that what I'm learning is actually accurate. So Hugo is deeply experienced in the space. He's been very generous with his time, and I'm really grateful for it. I hope this will be as valuable for you as it was for me. During the podcast, we're also going to talk about his upcoming class, Building AI Applications for Data Scientists and Software Engineers. It starts on November 3rd, and he was very kind in offering a 25% discount code for the class. So there's a link in the show notes. You use the discount code DrunkenPM, and you get 25% off. But it's starting really soon, November 3rd, so you want to sign up really quick. Before we get into this, I have a few quick announcements. If at some point you get invited to be a guest on a podcast and you go into a blind cold sweat panic because you've never done that before, you're not sure how to prepare, you're worried you're going to get caught, you're going to look foolish, it's going to be a terrible experience that will end your career forever. But you don't have to worry anymore, because the Agile Uprising's Jay Hershko and I recorded a podcast on how to be a guest on a podcast. So the goal is to try to offer tips and things to help you out if you've never done that before. And selfishly, it's to make it easier for us when we're editing the podcast that you were interviewed on. So it's really fun for me to get to work with Jay because we both come from the same area. He's from Jersey, I'm from Philly, and it's just fun to jam with him on stuff. So I hope that that's of value to you as well. There's a link to that in the show notes. And my really big announcement for today. Since 2009, I have been on the very same mission. I took a CSM class. I got booed in the class. My journey into Agile was horrible. And since then, the way I always explain what I'm trying to do with my days is to make the journey from traditional project management to Agile suck less for other people than it did for me. When I started, I was teaching both traditional stuff and Agile stuff, and I was doing coaching. Then after a while, all I was doing was Scrum training. And a little over a year ago, I started coaching again. And that's been awesome because it's allowed me to reconnect with individuals, teams, and organizations that are trying to figure out how to get better at working together. The Productivity Survival course that Mark Kilby and I teach is a big part of that, as is the Art of War for Project Managers. And now I'm adding PMP and PMI ACP back into the mix. So I'm partnering with Anu Smalley, Kate McGaw, and Stuart Young, and bringing these PMI certification classes back into the list of things that I teach. So if you know anybody considering them, please check the links in the show notes, send them my way. What I can promise is that we'll cover the required material and balance it with practical road-tested experiences that are going to leave you prepared not just for the exams, but for the tactical execution of the work after the exams are over. All right, so I think that's enough promo stuff. Now we're going to dive into the very deep end of the agentic pool. I hope you find it valuable. Thanks. Hey, this is Dave Prior. Welcome to The Reluctant Agilist. Today, I have Hugo Bowne-Anderson with me. Thank you for being here.
Such a pleasure to be here, Dave. What's up?
Now, it's morning for you tomorrow.
It is. It's Monday morning. I live in the future, Sydney, Australia, and it's getting to the tail end of spring or mid-spring, and it's wonderfully sunny out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for making time in your morning. It's Sunday night for me. So I'm going to go through, for the folks who are listening, I wrote a script to prepare for this. So Hugo's an independent data and AI scientist, consultant, writer, educator, and podcaster who focuses on promoting data and AI literacy and fluency, helping to spread data skills through organizations and society, lowering the barrier for entry for data science, analysis, and machine learning. And I'm hoping we can make a small dent in that today. He does have a course coming up on November 3rd, Building AI Applications for Data Scientists and Software Engineers, which we'll talk about before the end, and there will be a link to in the show notes if you want to check it out. The thing that I wanted to start with is when you meet somebody who's not from your field, how do you explain who you are and what you do?
It's a good question. It depends on who they are. But I usually explain that I love to build things and help other people build things to solve business problems. So I do that in a variety of ways. Firstly, by consulting and advising, then teaching as well. Both my own courses online, and then I go into a lot of organizations and run courses internally there, and also in developer relations, so helping tool builders reach developers as well. But my real goal is, technology or otherwise, I want to help people solve business problems, right?
Okay.
And as it turns out, lots of technology can help us do that. As it turns out, even more, data-powered software and data-powered thinking can help us do that. So I've been working in this space since we called it data science. Then we transitioned to machine learning. Then after our ChatGPT moment, we call it AI. But it's data all the way down. And regardless, the labs try to sell you models constantly. Of course, whether defensible or not, we're not sure, but their moats are all due to data. Just as the products that you all build in the end and use AI for, one of your big moats and one of your big differentiators will be your data as well. So don't get too distracted by the wonderful, shiny models and products. Think about what you're putting into them.
Cool. Thank you. And I want to mention you have a podcast called Vanishing Gradients. People can check that out.
Yeah.
I'll have a link to that.
I have one called High Signal as well. And Vanishing Gradients is all for builders and people. All my guests are people building on the ground. High Signal is really for data, machine learning, and AI leaders. So we, interview people at the top of the game. We had Fei Lee, who, she's done so much incredible work in the space on recently. So yeah, they're the two podcasts I do.
Awesome. Thank you. So, and I don't get a lot of people other than me who do multiple podcasts. So that's awesome. All right. So trying to learn more about ML Ops. I joined the ML Ops community. They published your article, Stop Building AI Agents. Here's what you should build instead. And I was like, ooh, that should be really interesting because I'm still struggling to get my head around agents and how they all work. And the thing that really kind of pulled me into that was the idea of having agents interact and how complexity can be the thing that breaks it. And the fact that I talk to people who are in the agile space or in the project management space, trying to figure out what they have to study. For a minute or two, it was I have to become a prompt engineering expert. Now they're all like, oh my gosh, I have to know about agents because this was the year of the agent, and next year is the year when agents become mainstream, but everybody's going to cancel their agent projects by 2027. And it's harder to tell what's actually happening because those are all different articles that are out there. I would like it if we could dig into a little bit, like first, what is an agent? How is it different from like an LLM and some other things? And how are people using them?
Yeah, great questions. And really appreciate you referencing what I wrote about Stop Building AI Agents. And it's based around a blog post that we can share in the show notes as well. And just to be clear, and we'll get to this, but I wrote that thinking about people who are trying to build consistent, reliable software that they want to serve to end users, right?
Okay.
If you have a strong human in the loop and strong supervision, agents can be incredibly powerful. But because, as we'll get to, they're fallible in a lot of ways, we don't want to necessarily be a healthcare company, serving agents to patients, right? Or work in regulated spaces like finance. But stepping back, what is an agent? Essentially, it's an AI system that does stuff, right? Outside just chatting with you, okay? So ChatGPT originally, it would just be a conversational interface, right? But now it actually does things. It will search the internet. You don't even ask it to. If you go to ChatGPT now and say, tell me today's October 27 or whenever you're listening, tell me breaking news today, you're not asking it to look up the internet, but it will, quote unquote, know that this is past its cutoff date, and it will do a web search. Similarly, if you say, draw Hugo and Dave in the style of The Simpsons, it will trigger an image generation tool, right? So all an agent is AI that does stuff. So I've just given two examples, but ones that send calendar invites. Imagine, Dave, that if we're on a Zoom call and we needed to set up a next call, and we just decided on time, and I said, hey, AI transcriber, circle back, whichever it is, can you put this on our calendars next? After this call ends. We don't have to worry about time zones then, or AI that drafts emails, prepares reports. And so I actually showed you an example of one I did. It's from a company called Manus, and they've released Manus Mail recently. And I our email thread about this podcast, I just CC'd it or forwarded our thread to it and said, can you please give me a comprehensive preparation document for this podcast? And half an hour later, and you were really impressed with the quality of this thing. There are a few things incorrect here, a few things there. But it prepared a report for me. You could imagine on Monday morning, each executive gets a slide deck of priorities this week or a report of priorities this week. And then perhaps one that will say, I need to clear your calendar so you can do deep work. So this is now futuristic, but these are all examples of AI that can and will do things.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions, but one of the things you just sparked for me was when I think about what I want AI to do for me, I want it to be like my C3PO. I want it to be able to tell me if you increase utilization on this project by 30%, you're going to see a drop off in retention by 50% 6 months from now. And things like forecasting or risk analysis and things like that, where it's got to have some kind of trigger things that make judgment calls or tell me like, hey, you're overloaded tomorrow. You should free something up, probably this meeting. It seemed like Manus was sort of heading in that direction.
Absolutely. But I will caution yourself and everyone, myself included, Andre Karpathy, he was at OpenAI and he ran AI at Tesla, very, very well-regarded person in the space. He was on the Dwarkesh podcast in the past week. And he actually said this. So we said 2025 was going to be the year of agents. Karpathy came out and said, this is going to be the decade of agents.
Oh, wow.
And one thing he meant by that is, I think it's Amara's law, right? Which is we're too bullish on short-term technological change and too bearish on medium to long-term, right? So the types of things you're talking about, I think we'll see over the course of the next decade, hopefully, but not in the next several years. And I do anyone who's played with ChatGPT, I'm going to say something which I hope will resonate. But we really should think of LLMs and agents as incredibly fast, chaotic, caffeinated, unreliable interns with access to all of human knowledge. They're chaotic and caffeinated because they'll do so many things you don't ask for.
If they show up for work at all.
Exactly. And they forget to do things you ask for. They're unreliable because their memory kind of sucks.
And they
in
make
lots
crap
of
up
ways. Exactly.
Sometimes.
They constantly hallucinate, right? So I say that just to set expectations of where we're currently at. And I think these are characteristics that will improve over the next years and decade. But I love the idea of one that can actually do risk analysis and forecasting and these types of things and present that to you in a reliable manner. But, and hopefully we'll get to this, but in terms of having a human in the loop versus just automating stuff, whenever you're using an agent to do something, treat it like the type of intern I just described. So if you're preparing a slide deck for your CEO, would you take a chaotic, unreliable, incredible intern's slide deck and then not have a look over it? Whereas if you were sending a transcript of a meeting and maybe the to-do list or action items to a colleague, perhaps you wouldn't care so much, right? So it's all about risk tolerance in that sense as well.
Okay. So with agents, if people are still trying to get their head around what they need to learn to be ready for the next pitch, the next ball to come down the plate, is agents where they should be focused? Because it was like several months ago, it was all, you got to go learn prompt engineering. And now it's all agents, and next it'll be something else. Do you think that this is a place where people can kind of dig in and start to build some skills?
So I'd like to step back a bit, and I think the answer is yes, but I want to be clear that prompt engineering is still very important. I also think there's all types of shiny things that fly around on LinkedIn, which I like to call TikTok for adults. So we should remember, the type of places we're actually talking about, right? And for me, it isn't actually agent or not. As I mentioned, ChatGPT has some agentic capabilities. So we want to think about how many tools or functions we equip things with. So perhaps we have something that has a web search tool, a document generation tool, and a slide deck generation tool. But then we don't add, I can query all these databases and that type of stuff, right? So as a builder, that's how I like to think about it. And
Okay.
then also think about start, and it's tough given, how much mind share all these tools have, but start with a problem, not a tool. Okay. And start with high value and low complexity as well. And so then it isn't just agent or not, it's how much agency you give and how much human supervision you need as well.
I'm sure that's going to resonate with all the Agile people that are still wondering why their clients were saying, go down to the store and get me a box of the Agile. They didn't have a problem to solve, except that they didn't have any Agile. Now they just want the box of AI.
This is the other thing, man. I do think, when it's different when you're working in a company yourself, as opposed to when you're building things for clients, customers. When you're doing the latter, there's all types of there's also expectations to be managed internally. But when someone says to me, we need an AI strategy, so let's create this, multi-agentic system, and then we dive into customer support tickets, and it looks like, we can actually just develop, a simple customer support doc over internal, over customer facing docs or something like that to solve 1 in 4 customer tickets. Unsexy option, unshiny, but the business ROI is totally tangible. You can measure results, and you can see results, in months, if not weeks.
And that was one of the points of the article, right? You don't always need an agent for everything. There are simpler solutions.
Exactly.
So they need to so the people that are wanting the thing need to understand the problem better. And then we go find the best solution for the problem, not just go get the fastest motorcycle because it's the fastest motorcycle.
Exactly. But for people working as consultants or taking on clients, I know it's tough to say no. Well, no, I'm saying I know it's tough to say no to work sometimes, but remember, you can make your life a lot easier by taking on clients who get it versus trying to convince ones who don't.
Okay, so this is a complete tangent, but don't you think that the consultants have a responsibility to try to educate the clients as well? To like, hey, I know you want the shiny thing, but this other thing, like guardrails, might solve this problem. They're not sexy, but they'll get it done.
Perhaps in the Garden of Eden, Dave, but like far out. Am I going to get on a call with every prospect and try to convince them when they don't want to listen?
Well, that's okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. All right, so maybe they're your future clients after they smash their ship into the rocks a few times.
No, once you take on a client, definite responsibility, without a doubt. Yes, yeah.
But the ones that what I mean is that the ones that don't want to hear the message, they'll be your clients in a year or two. Well, after they've learned that they need to listen to the message,
if they're still around.
Yeah, if they're still around. Okay, so how do you know, or how do you determine when an agentic solution is necessary?
So once again, I would think about the spectrum of agency, right? So I'd start with a problem and then think about, what type of agentic capabilities do I need? So maybe I need it to do something, right? So let's take an example of, it's a pain to look through transcripts of and put them in ChatGPT and get out the to-do list and action items after the meeting.
Yeah.
So maybe I build a simple workflow which ingests the transcript, gets out the to-do list and action items, and emails it to everyone who was on the call, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so that's somewhat agentic, like it's taking an action, right? But there's really only one thing that it does. And then maybe to take it a bit further, let's say you're booking.com and you want to build your travel assistant chatbot for externally facing, right? Are you going to give it access to the entire internet? Probably not, right? What you'll do is you'll give it access to everything in Booking that people can book. And perhaps you start by allowing it to do a few things like book accommodation, book travel, book transport, and book excursions. So you're allowing it to do 4 things there, but nothing else, right? And maybe this is an MVP to ship initially to make sure it works, to make sure that it actually improves your business and improves customer satisfaction, right? So these are agentic, but they're not they're not wildly agentic. I'm not allowing it to do
Yeah.
1,000 things, which lots of agents
So
are
the
these days,
rollout of
right?
this stuff can be incremental as well, like maybe one thing, then two things, then four things, and then how do
Without a
I
doubt.
coordinate it across a group that wants to travel together?
Exactly.
Okay. And so each of those four things can be a separate workflow, and the results are pulled together at the end. Are there, I don't know if this is a good example or not, but things where they'd have to coordinate their results and make decisions together? Sort of like if this is happening here and this is happening here, then this is the action, or you like a happy path, sad path kind of a thing. Can they make those kind of decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can link to a blog post by Anthropic. For those who don't, I mean, probably everyone knows. Would your listeners know Claude and Anthropic?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah. So I don't mean to.
No. We're a
but
slow-witted bunch. But yes, they will know what they are.
Yeah. I mean,
and if they aren't, they should feel shame.
So Anthropic published a blog post called something like "Building Our Multi-Agent Research Crew" or something like that. And this is something which has like an orchestrator agent and actually spawns sub-agents in order to solve particular problems that then give their responses back to the orchestrator agent, which then collects all these things together and quote unquote decides whether to spawn more sub-agents and that type of stuff. So definitely you can have multi-agentic systems in that sense, which are coordinated.
But, okay, I'm jumping around a lot, so I apologize for that, but my head's doing that right now.
Sure.
Somebody coming from an agile consulting world, maybe some development background, project managers, you're not going to expect them to be able to write that stuff. I mean, like a software developer, maybe, but not somebody who's more on the transformation project management side of things, right?
No, but I mean, we may get to this, but there are all types of no-code tools you can build with these days that are super interesting. I think it isn't actually the writing that's the biggest concern for me. It's the debugging. If you build something like that, and it messes up at some point, how do you even figure out how to fix it, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to if you've built something that, does four things, you can have a look in and see what's going wrong and where it's going wrong.
Which I'm just assuming that's going to be a whole new industry that's going to crop up. The people that are like spelunking through vibe coding stuff to find security holes and mistakes that nobody understood because the people that wrote it didn't know what they were asking the device to write.
Yeah, I think the jury's out there because, I mean, this is happening for individuals. I mean, if corporations, like big companies, are pushing vibe-coded stuff to prod and they need that fixed, the best, I mean, AI-assisted coding, I think, is incredible. Once again, Andre Karpathy in this Dwarkesh podcast said, for the most part, and he writes pretty sophisticated code, which isn't necessarily represented in training data, but he says he uses like the autocomplete, like tab autocomplete the most, right?
Wow.
Having said that, in my line of work in like machine learning and data science stuff, it knows a lot of the PyTorch stack and all of these things. So it can be pretty good with that stuff. It still writes, like ChatGPT just rants. It will write like, you'll be like, I want this in 15 lines of code, and it'll do like 15 nested subdirectories and that type of stuff, right? So my point is that when the best AI assisted coding, I don't really think is vibe coding. It has a human in the loop in a very strong way to check things.
There's one guy I interviewed who was using ChatGPT, this was like a year and a half ago, to write the code, but also do TDD to test the code afterwards. I mean,
it can be great at writing tests as well. Once again, if it's represented in the training data, right? Like for a lot of my work, it knows scikit-learn and the scientific Python data stack pretty well. If it was on Stack Overflow, your AI assistant will probably know it.
Okay, so but it sounds like you trust it.
Because
I think that's my biggest thing is that I don't know if I'm ready to trust the intern yet.
No, I definitely don't. As I said, like it will write,
ridiculousness,
a whole variety of subdirectories and be super verbose, and I'll keep telling it, I just want a prototype, and it will like write all the tests and all the catches and that type of stuff.
Okay.
But what my statement there was, for a lot of the things I have to write, it has the code in its training data, so I don't need to do what Karpathy does and write something and only use the tab autocomplete.
Okay.
The other thing though is, if you start with a problem, that's high value.
This is what I was just going to ask you about. Yeah, go ahead.
And low complexity, you won't need to build something super massive and complex.
Okay.
So you can imagine, like, for product managers, data and interview synthesis, so analyzing user feedback from surveys and support tickets and even social media to identify common themes and pain points. Competitive analysis, you can set up something agentic that will like continuously monitor competitor websites and product updates, synthesize information, give you reports based on it. Slightly cooler stuff like user story generation, so turn high-level feature ideas into detailed user stories and test cases by providing context about the product and target user. Right. You can also, let's say you're building a SaaS product, you can also generate a user experience agent, and of course you want real users as well to make sure that what you're generating matches this, but to like go around and point and click and see what happens and that type of stuff. And in fact, a friend and colleague of mine, Thomas Vicky at PyMC Labs, we'll share the link to this in the show notes. He recently worked with Colgate to synthetically Colgate Palmolive, of course, to synthetically generate.
This is in the article.
I'm not sure it was.
Or maybe I read about this somewhere.
Yeah.
I thought it was your article.
To generate responses to user surveys, to test new ideas. So they tested like glow in the dark toothpaste and mango flavored toothpaste and that type of stuff. And after a bit of iteration, it aligned, I think, over 90% with real user interviews. On top of that, dude, it aligned via different types of demographics. So as it turns out, people in their 50s are less experimental with the type of toothpaste they'd be interested in. So they'll probably not be interested in mango-flavored toothpaste. People in their teens and 20s are more interested in experimenting with that type of stuff. And that was all captured, right, by the synthetic data generation process as well.
Okay, so can we stick on value for a second? Because I'd like to hear a little bit about how you think about value. When I think about it, I'm thinking of something in a backlog. It's got value to a customer. It's got value to a company. It's got value to the development team. But this adds many different dimensions, because it could be speed, the skills we need to develop using agentic stuff or some form of AI. I mean, like, when you think about the value of something in a backlog, how do you decide whether or not this is really something we should be building with AI or not?
So the first types of value I would look for are things that are already happening in the organization, and you can see how long that takes and how much headcount it costs to do it and what efficiencies you can get, right? The best place to look, of course, is in sales teams, right? So if you're saving salespeople time and they can call more leads and get more people in the funnel and then convert more, win-win. So think about sales call summarization, like transcribe conversations, key takeaways, action items,
automate. The research thing you showed me right before we started recording.
Amazing, right? Yeah. Absolutely amazing. So you can identify essentially what you do want to identify what the bottom line impact is there, right? And that's like the final projection of everything most organizations do, for better and for worse, right? But if you can, take a proposed solution, how do you demonstrate its high value? I think figure out how much money it will save the organization. I think those are the early to medium term wins. Of course, then there are new product ideas, right?
Okay.
And how have we evaluated them historically, right?
You gotta run tests.
Think through how you've done that. I think the one thing that changes now is one of the most important emerging skill sets isn't the ability to generate new fantastic ideas and to prototype them. It'll be to spin down ones that you think won't work. And of course, this has been somewhat important, But in a world where you can prototype 100 ideas in a week because you have AI, what you want to make sure is you have people who know which of the 99 to say no to and which one to pursue. And I think
That's one of the concerns I've heard, is that the world's going to be just overrun with crappy prototypes that were not thought through, that get abandoned or left behind or whatever.
Yeah, more overrun. I'd argue that we've kind of forgotten about like what good products actually. Look at ChatGPT,
It's
man.
like
There's
Sebastian's house in Blade Runner. It's just full of these broken robots.
And look, I mean, ChatGPT is amazing in so many ways, but you'd be hard pressed to say it's a great product, right? It errors out all the time. It doesn't. At some point it says like responses may be incorrect. As a product, is that how you deal with a civilizational challenge of hallucinations?
But it's better than just Google.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's some step up.
I totally agree. Well, It's better than Google at conversational stuff. I don't know if it's better than Google at getting you an answer to your question. A correct answer, a correct and
it's really good at Riverside support. I'll tell you that.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And once again, because it's in its training data.
Yeah. Okay. So what is it that somebody from a background of being a product owner, project manager, scrum master, when they end up in a room with you, what is it that you want them to know so that you don't feel like you're having to like drag them down the hallway and show them how the machines work? Like, how I want us to be of benefit to you, to be able to support the work that's happening and not be like, oh, that guy, you know?
So firstly, I kind of love those rooms a lot more than with technical builders, because, which is most of my time, right? Because technical builders, when they focus on, a lot of technical builders love them to bits, but they'll be like, oh, what's the accuracy of this individual LLM call? And I'm like, bro, what's the business value, right? So like product people are constantly thinking about user value and business value. Something I like to drill down into is just let them know, instead of chasing the dream of like fully autonomous AI agents, first focus on trying to build reliable, structured workflows. Start simple, break down your problems, keep a human in the loop, and iterate. So the real power of AI today isn't about replacing humans at all. It's about augmenting us, right? We're building co-pilots, not autopilots.
Excellent. Okay. I want to test one thing with you about this. So I have been thinking for a while of AI like it's an instrument, but it's like a theremin, right? So it needs a human to play it, but we don't really understand how that thing works. But you put your hands in here, it's going to make weird space sounds. Does that resonate for you, that it's an instrument that needs to be played, or does that not work?
Oh no, it works completely. And I love, it's not just an instrument. You're right. It is theremin-esque. It's not,
but it's
like
the two together that create the thing.
But it's not like a piano where,
right,
like a grand piano, you hit a key and you
makes a sound.
On average, and you know what sound it will make. Someone else could tell you what sound it will make, right? And this is actually very important in terms of, and this is a slight tangent, but I think it's very relevant in terms of AI adoption. Now, where I've seen AI adopted the best and most productively are organizations that don't consider it an add-on to what everyone's doing already. They carve out space and time to experiment with it, right? Whether that's an afternoon a week or a day a week, or meetings about it, or Slack channels for people to experiment with AI. All of these different types of things.
Yeah.
And one reason that's super important when adopting any new technology, I think you need to carve out time and space for it, and don't necessarily expect immediate returns. But with AI in particular, and generative AI, it's deeply inconsistent, right? So I can use ChatGPT one day, insert product here, it doesn't matter if it's ChatGPT or not, to do something in an hour that it would have taken me a day before. But the next week with ChatGPT, maybe it takes 3 hours for some reason. Maybe like it's because it's so inconsistent.
It's
right?
evolving too, right?
Well, no, even before it's evolved, right? So that's the next level.
Okay.
Right. So even before it's evolved, you put in the same input and it can give you a different output, right? So you can't be guaranteed, right? On top of that, to your point, the next level is when GPT-5 came out, it changed a lot of things. That meant people who had workflows with GPT-4 now didn't work for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next step. So we've got an individual product itself is Theremin-esque. The updates are like meta Theremin-esque. And then with the evolution of these tools on top of that, so we have new tools. I described Manus Mail earlier. This is like an orchestra of theremins we're all trying to play together, right?
Only one of them's turned into a drum machine. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
And one of them's playing itself somehow, right? And you're like, what?
All right. Based on whatever all the other ones are doing. Okay.
Exactly.
So do you think that it makes sense for people to get started by trying to build agents if they're trying to get their head around it? I mean, kind of following with that thing about, testing stuff out, like, should I go learn how to create agents or should I just keep learning more about what agents can do and where the boundaries are?
Definitely. So there are two ways to think about this.
Okay.
So project managers, scrum masters, product owners, all of you listening, you are more important than ever in the age of AI. I think all your skills in defining workflows, managing complexity, focusing on value are exactly what's needed to build AI systems that actually work.
Okay.
I encourage everyone to experiment with even what tools they have currently in internally. Like if your organization has Zapier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can start building workflows with that. Also, there are tools like, and I'm not recommending any tools, right? There are lots like N8N, for example, and a bunch of others. Like, play around with these and see what you can do for your own workflows and team workflows. The other, and you don't need anything technical to be able to do that. There are no code for those who code a bit, low code tools as well. If you want to start building more like reliable, robust ones that require significant code, I definitely encourage you to, prototype things, whether that's vibe coding or use low code, no code tools to do so.
Okay.
But then, start working with, your AI engineers internally or software developers or data people in order to build out more robust systems there.
Okay. So just get started with something that's going to be valuable in some way to learn about it, but then partner up with people, which is going to be good for them anyway, because they have to learn how to communicate with the people that are building these in a slightly different way because there's a different kind of technology.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll give one example. Do stuff that like reduces your own pain as well, right?
Yeah.
So if you're drowning in emails, a lot of people are, find a tool. I mean, I know some coding tools.
I have over 25,000 unread emails in my inbox.
Incredible. And you can, use tools to prioritize
delete
emails.
Email.
Yeah, exactly. A daily deletion, hourly deletion tool, but to cluster emails, to classify them as high priority, to ping you on Slack if one of them really needs a response now. You can even build tools to automate drafting emails I would never send one that's totally automated, but after a bit of human review and a bit of editing, then maybe you send it. So that's a bit of human supervision there, right?
Yeah.
So think about the stuff that takes you time that you really think humans shouldn't be doing that stuff. And I don't enjoy doing that. So
awesome. I am grateful to you for taking time for this. I want to make sure that we take a minute to talk about your course and how people can track you down and, check out your podcast and read the stuff that you're writing. So where would you like to start with that?
So first place to connect is LinkedIn.
Okay.
And we'll put the link in the show notes, but Hugo Bowne, Bowne-Anderson there.
Okay.
And as I said, check out Vanishing Gradients podcast. I also have a Substack called Vanishing Gradients,
okay.
Where I publish a lot of stuff, more technical stuff about the space. And then, the course. I'm actually really excited that the next, we run this course. We've run it the past few quarters, starting in January. And it's on Maven. It's called Building AI Applications for Data Scientists and Software Engineers. I teach it with my colleague and friend Stefan Krautchik, who he works on AI agent infrastructure at Salesforce. He works on Agentforce there. And I bring all like the data, machine learning stuff. He brings all the like opsy, machine learning ops and LLM AI ops stuff. And it's a 4-week course where we have That's 2-hour workshops a week. And we cover everything for, people who know a bit of programming, bit of Python or whatever it is, can come and learn everything from how to build agents, how to evaluate them, how to iterate on them, retrieval augmented generation. So that's like getting stuff out of documents, fine tuning, all of these things. And the real idea behind it is, you don't only learn how to like design, build, and deploy generative AI systems, but really how to iterate and improve them rapidly. Because data, ML, and AI-powered software, one of the most important things is to recognize that shipping is continual and iterative, right? So think about Netflix recommendation system. When they first launched it, people who built that had their eyes glued to dashboards for weeks, if not months, and were constantly and now maybe it's like daily or something like that, right? But these are entropic systems that have new data coming in all the time and shift and change. So shipping isn't just shipping. Shipping is the process of being in the loop as they continually evolve, and we teach all the ins and outs of that continual process.
Wow! So you just said something. I just want to make sure I heard it right. So in the past, we have finished something and shipped it, but if you're shipping something that's going to be learning as it goes, shipping is continual, and you have to keep checking in to make sure the casserole is not burnt, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that analogy. Yes. And to be clear, I appreciate in like traditional software, you do version 1 or 1.1 and then version 1.2. So there is an iterative process there, but in data-powered software, it's actually it's continuous and has to be, because things keep coming up. Think about what Stripe needed to do and still needs to do with respect to fraud detection. Like that's not something that they won't be looking at.
Fraudsters are learning as well.
Exactly. Yes. So many adversarial things, and once again, Google algorithm, SEO, right? And then people who game search engine optimization and so on. So when you have data-powered software, we think of it as being organic in some ways. It has inputs and outputs, and it's constantly shifting. So, and maybe you have a whole new class of users enter the scene as well.
Wow.
And also, I'd love to offer your audience 25% off for the course as well. So we'll include a coupon in the show notes.
Thank you. That's great. Appreciate it. I'm really grateful to you for taking this time to go through this stuff with me and with everybody who's listening. This is fun.
And as I said, for the most part, I work with pretty technical people, but I always love chatting with people about how all types of folk can get business value and personal value from building with this type of tech. So I appreciate you, Dave.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing the discount with the listeners. So go check it out. Check out the Substack, the podcast, LinkedIn. I think that's all of it, right?
That's it.
All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Dave.
Drunk